A day of revelations. It began like any other Saturday for Ethan. The quiet luxury of the weekend allowed him to sleep in, waking later than usual. Stretching lazily, he turned to kiss his wife, Samantha, his partner of 17 years. But Samantha, still nestled under the warm covers, grumbled and waved him away. "Ethan, let me sleep," she muttered. "You wouldn't leave me alone last night. And now you're at it again this morning. The girls are probably awake by now." Ethan chuckled. "They're old enough to manage themselves for a while." "Exactly," she replied without opening her eyes. "Old enough not to barge into their parents' bedroom. So let me sleep." With a resigned smile, Ethan got up, wrapped himself in his robe, and headed for the shower. On his way, he paused briefly outside his elder daughter Valerie's room. From behind the door came the sound of playful squeals and protests. Vicky, his younger daughter, was dragging her sister out of bed. Ethan shook his head and decided not to intervene. By the time he was showered and dressed, the girls had finished their morning skirmish and were already seated at the kitchen table. Valerie, her messy hair framing her face, looked up and said, "Dad, is there any breakfast? We're starving. And we still have school." "School?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "It's winter break, isn't it? You're supposed to be heading to Grandma's." The girls groaned in unison. Ethan waved a hand toward the hallway. "Go wash up and brush your teeth. Oatmeal will be ready in 15 minutes. As he prepared breakfast, Samantha emerged from the bedroom, looking fresh and polished. She sat down at the table with the girls. Ethan glanced at her, wearing one of his button-down shirts, and his heart did its familiar flutter. 17 years had passed, yet he still found her beautiful. But lately, an invisible wall had risen between them. Once the girls were seated, Samantha spoke. "Finish eating, and then pack your things. Your dad will be driving you to my mom's today. You'll spend the break there." "But Mom," Valerie protested, "you promised we'd go to the ski resort. We've already packed our ski gear. We wanted to celebrate New Year's together." Samantha's tone turned brisk. "Sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan. We'll go skiing during spring break instead. But by then, there won't be any snow," Vicky muttered under her breath. "Unless we go to the Rockies." "Enough," Samantha snapped. "Are you finished? Go pack." Ethan felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had been looking forward to the ski trip as much as the girls. Samantha's sudden insistence on sending the girls to her parents felt calculated, especially since it coincided with a new presence in her life. Arthur, her business director. Arthur. Ethan knew the name well. He was Samantha's college ex. Someone she had conveniently forgotten to mention was now working alongside her. Though Ethan had no concrete evidence of anything beyond mild workplace flirtation, the change in Samantha's demeanor over the past months gnawed at him. Today, her determination to clear the house felt like the final piece of a puzzle he didn't want to solve. Samantha had a plan, he could feel it. And whatever it wasn't meant to include him. After breakfast, Ethan excused himself, heading to the bathroom to wash his hands. Before returning to the kitchen, he discreetly switched on a voice recorder and tucked it into his shirt pocket. When he sat back down, the room was quiet. Samantha met his eyes, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "Ethan," she began, "we need to talk." Her tone set off alarm bells in his mind. He set down his coffee and met her gaze. "Is something wrong?" "No, everything's fine," she said softly. "You know how much I love you. Only you. All these years, you've been an incredible husband and father. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Ethan frowned. "Uh-huh. So what's stopping us?" She hesitated, then continued. "You know, I majored in sociology. It's rare for people in my field to keep up with the research, but I do. It's important to me." "Samantha, could you get to the point?" he asked, his patience thinning. "I've been reading a lot about what makes marriages fail," she explained. "And I want to protect ours." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What do you think is going to happen to us?" "I think we need to be proactive," she said. "Sometimes to strengthen a marriage you have to step back. Take time to grow as individuals. Explore other aspects of yourself. I believe we need a break." "A break?" Ethan's voice was sharp now. "How long?" "Just 2 weeks. While the girls are with my mom, you and I can branch out, see other people and—" "Stop." Ethan's voice was cold. You're saying you want to spend the holidays with your lover, and you're trying to frame it as some kind of enlightened plan to save our marriage. Her face fell. Ethan, it's not like that. It's exactly like that, he interrupted. This isn't about sociology or growth. It's about Arthur. I've known for months. Samantha's voice faltered. It's not what you think. Don't, he said. Just don't. How do you plan to explain this to the girls? Or to your parents when we divorce? Divorce, she gasped. Ethan, no. That's not what I want. It's what you've set in motion, he said, his voice resolute. At that moment, Valerie appeared in the doorway. Dad, we're ready to go. Perfect, Ethan said, standing. He grabbed his laptop bag and jacket, then turned to Samantha. Goodbye. As the car pulled out of the driveway, the girls sat quietly in the back seat. Finally, Valerie spoke. Dad, Grandma's house is the other way. I know, Ethan said, his voice steady. But you were promised a ski trip, and I intend to keep that promise. Where will we stay? Vicky asked. We'll figure it out, he replied. Valerie hesitated. Are you and Mom getting a divorce? Ethan's grip on the wheel tightened. Why do you ask that? We heard you two arguing this morning, she said. I'm on your side, Dad. Vicky nodded. Me too. Ethan glanced at his daughters in the rearview mirror, their young faces filled with trust and loyalty. Then we'll be okay, he said. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to smile. A leap into freedom. The silence in Ethan's car was as heavy as his heart as he drove down the open road. Valerie and Vicky sat quietly in the back seat, their curious eyes scanning the snow-dusted horizon. Eventually, Valerie broke the silence. Dad, where are we going? Grandma's house is in the other direction. Ethan smiled softly at her in the rearview mirror. I know, honey. But you were promised a ski trip, and I intend to keep that promise. But where will we stay? Vicky asked, her voice tinged with concern. Don't worry. I have an old friend who manages a ski resort. We'll figure it out. Dad, Valerie hesitated, then blurted. Are you and Mom getting a divorce? Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, but his tone remained calm. Why do you ask that? We heard you two arguing this morning, Valerie admitted. I'm on your side, though. Vicky chimed in. Same. Ethan's chest tightened. He was grateful for their loyalty, but their words carried a weight he wished they didn't have to bear. Don't worry about that right now. Let's focus on having the fun you deserve. We'll stay at the resort for now, and I'll figure out the rest later. The girls exchanged nervous glances, but trusted their father's steady demeanor. Samantha's dilemma. Back at home, Samantha watched Ethan's car vanish into the distance. Her stomach churned with unease as she picked up her phone and dialed Arthur. Arthur answered promptly. Arthur here. It's me, Samantha. We have a problem, she said, her voice trembling. What happened? My husband didn't react as we'd planned. He's refusing to go along with the 2-week separation. Worse, he knows about you, about our college fling, and he's threatening divorce. Arthur's tone turned sharp. Divorce? That's not good. If this gets out, it could ruin us, at work and at home. My wife finding out would be a disaster. Samantha sighed. I don't know what to do. He left with the girls and hasn't come back. He's probably at my parents' place by now. Arthur's voice softened. Look, just stay calm. Tell him you've changed your mind about the separation. We need to defuse this before it spirals. And whatever you do, don't let this leak into the office. Samantha hung up, feeling slightly reassured but still overwhelmed. She decided to prepare a peace offering, a nice dinner with wine. She dressed quickly, picked up takeout, and returned home to set the table. Yet as the hours passed, Ethan still hadn't come back. Ethan's new beginning. By now, Ethan and the girls had arrived at the ski resort. He called Fred, an old college buddy who now managed the resort, and briefly explained the situation. Fred, ever the loyal friend, immediately offered a vacant cabin. Anything for you, Ethan. I've got a cozy spot that'll fit the three of you perfectly. Thanks, Fred. And if anyone calls looking for us, I'll deny you're here, Fred assured him with a chuckle. An hour later, they pulled up to the cabin. The girls excitedly explored the cozy space, claiming their rooms while Ethan unloaded the car. Fred had even prepared a warm meal for their arrival. You're a lifesaver, Ethan said, clapping Fred on the back. Fred grinned. Anything for an old friend. Now tell me, what's going on? Ethan sighed, his expression darkening. It's a mess, Fred. Samantha and her new boss, her ex from college, cooked up this ridiculous plan for a 2-week separation. She claims it's to strengthen our marriage, but I know better. I'm done. Fred raised an eyebrow. She's not actively cheating, though? Not yet, but the intent is clear. I can't stick around for this. Fred nodded sympathetically. You're doing the right thing, man. Stay here as long as you need. A family reconnects. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of his daughters knocking on his door. Dad, get up. We want breakfast and then skiing. Ethan chuckled, shaking off the previous day's weight. All right, give me 5 minutes. They enjoyed a hearty breakfast at the resort cafe before hitting the slopes. For hours, laughter replaced the tension of the past days as they skied and played in the snow. That afternoon, Fred pulled Ethan aside. By the way, a group of attorneys checked in today. One of them specializes in family law. I mentioned your situation, and she's willing to help. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Let's set up a meeting. Later, he sat down with Natalie, the attorney, who explained his options. Ethan, your daughter's well-being will be the court's priority. If you can keep the family home for their stability, you might propose a buyout or a shared arrangement with your wife. But rushing into a sale could complicate things. Ethan listened intently, feeling the first glimmer of hope for a fresh start. The path ahead. Back at the cabin, the girls were brimming with excitement after skating. As they settled in for the night, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for certain. He would do whatever it took to protect his daughters and give them a stable, happy life. As for Samantha, she would have to face the consequences of her choices. Ethan was done being a passive participant in the unraveling of their marriage. The new year was just days away, and with it came the promise of a new beginning, one he intended to embrace wholeheartedly. Ethan's journey to new beginnings. The divorce process began with Natalie, the attorney Ethan met during his stay at the ski resort, drafting the initial paperwork. She explained the process, noting that courts were on holiday, but assured Ethan they would file as soon as possible. He agreed, determined to move forward. New Year's revelry and resolve. New Year's Eve arrived with an air of celebration. Ethan, his daughters, Fred's wife, her sister, and the visiting attorneys gathered in the Grand Ski Lodge Hall. The space was alive with music, dancing, and laughter as everyone enjoyed the festivities. The party stretched into the early hours of the morning, before Ethan carried his drowsy daughters back to their cabin. Once the girls were tucked in, Ethan rejoined the adults at his place, where they sat around the fireplace, sipping drinks and sharing stories until dawn. Over the following days, Ethan and his daughters embraced every moment of their ski resort escape, skiing by day and enjoying quiet evenings by the fire. Fred, ever the gracious host, checked in often, offering advice and encouragement. One evening, Fred asked, "How are you holding up emotionally?" Ethan responded with a thoughtful smile. "I've had time to reflect while the girls sleep. I'm ready for whatever comes next." When their time at the resort came to an end, Fred introduced Ethan to a divorce specialist who explained the steps for ensuring the process was smooth and in the best interest of his daughters. With this guidance, Ethan finalized his plans, prioritizing stability for Valerie and Vicky. Returning home. On their return trip, the trio stopped to buy groceries and arrived home at dusk. Valerie and Vicky dashed to their rooms to rearrange things, announcing, "We're swapping rooms. Dad gets Vicky's, and I'm sharing with her now." When Samantha emerged confused, she asked, "Why are you doing this?" Ethan calmly replied, "That's a rhetorical question. You can figure it out yourself." Samantha tried to protest, but Ethan dismissed her concerns and firmly stated, "By the way, I won't tolerate any lovers visiting here. Do as you wish elsewhere, but not in this home." He then set about preparing dinner for the girls, leaving Samantha feeling increasingly alienated. Confrontation and filing. As the week wore on, Samantha's attempts to reconnect with the girls were met with indifference. Meanwhile, Ethan installed locks on their bedrooms and continued managing household tasks, creating an environment of emotional distance. One Friday evening, the doorbell rang. Samantha answered it, receiving a certified letter containing Ethan's divorce petition. Tears welled in her eyes as she rushed to confront him. "Ethan, why are you doing this? I thought we could work things out," she pleaded. Ethan remained stoic, replying, "If you want answers, consult a lawyer or perhaps Arthur. I have nothing more to say." Despite her protests, Ethan's resolve was unshakable. The courtroom and custody decision. At the hearing, Ethan arrived with Natalie and his daughters, who gave statements about their wishes. Samantha appeared alone, visibly distressed. The judge heard both sides, granting a reconciliation period, while noting that Samantha had made no formal requests for property division or alimony. After a brief adjournment, Samantha returned with a surprising declaration. "I'm gifting my share of the apartment to our daughters. I'll also move out entirely, and only visit them weekly. I'm willing to contribute child support directly into accounts they can access when they turn 19. The judge finalized the divorce, granting Ethan primary custody. Samantha's attempts to reconnect with her family continued, but the wounds she had inflicted proved difficult to heal. Life after divorce. Samantha moved in with her aging parents, providing care until their passing later that year. Despite her efforts, her relationships with Valerie and Vicky remained strained. Eventually, she began dating a widower from her building, seeking solace in his companionship. Ethan, on the other hand, focused on his daughters. Their bond deepened as they navigated life together. The following New Year's, they returned to the ski resort, reuniting with Fred and his family. Among the group was Fred's sister-in-law, Katie, who caught Ethan's eye. Though their relationship blossomed slowly, Ethan remained cautious, prioritizing his daughters above all. Meanwhile, Arthur disappeared entirely from their lives. His wife, Kira, swiftly divorced him and remarried, moving on without looking back. A new chapter. Ethan's decision to prioritize his daughters and rebuild his life paid off. His home became a sanctuary of love, respect, and stability. Though Samantha's choices had led to irreparable changes, Ethan's unwavering commitment to his daughters ensured they thrived. Through challenges and heartbreak, Ethan emerged stronger, proving that even in the face of betrayal, it's possible to forge a brighter future.